It is time. It's time to stop hiding. It's time to stand up. It is time for Christians to come together, to share their testimony, to inspire hope, and to join their brothers and sisters as we all answer the call. Folks, it is time. More than ever, it is time to wake up the lions. I have an absolute lioness with me today that I cannot wait to introduce you folks to. I had the great pleasure and honor of having her on one of my other shows, and after talking to her, I said, "You've got to come on this other podcast," and she did. She said, "I'd love to." So here we are, folks. This lady's a life coach. She's a spiritual midwife. She's a voice activator for faith-filled women. She's the founder of New Wings Coaching, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today. She's an author, top of everything else, right? Of a book called Fit for the Call, which hopefully we're going to hear about too. And because that's not enough, she's also a podcast host of the hit podcast Hope Unlocked. Folks, please welcome to the show, Kristin Kurtz. Kristin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Like I said earlier, I'm back from Florida, trying to reacclimate into the northern climate. Challenged a little bit with that, but otherwise I'm fired up and thankful to be here, Rory. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks for coming on. And we're both Northern people. So we spent
Northern.
a little time in the pre-show going, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
wish we was in Florida.
Spring is coming. It's coming soon.
Absolutely. All right, Kristen, I mean, you've got so much going on. We could start anywhere, but where I'd really love for us to start is just for you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a little bit
Yeah.
about who Kristen Kurtz is, and, what sort of influence has God had on your life, and where did that all kind of begin?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try to keep it to kind of encapsulated, kind of an appetizer version of rather than a buffet. We'll see how far we go with that. But like I didn't grow up in the church. I actually hated God, to be honest with you. I would maybe be invited to church for a wedding and would think that the whole place was going to burn down because of how bad I was, right? So I grew up very unstable, traumatic life and ended up getting into drugs, alcohol, and just a very Russian roulette life. Like I literally just thought I was invincible, and I truly shouldn't be sitting here right now. Like I don't even know how many, probably 10-fold, 20-fold times over.
Wow.
So, kind of, skipping up ahead to get married at 24 to my husband Adam, who we've been together since we're 18. We've been together for, gosh, it's been like 30 years, I think. It's crazy. Like, wow, I'm getting older, I think. Getting some gray hairs. And, so we get married. I'm still, living that crazy party lifestyle. And I just started feeling really empty. And I was pretty empty already before that, but I was fun. Like I was the fun one who, on the outside looked like things were kind of together. Like I did some things like worked out and I ate pretty healthy, but yet on the flip side, I was just like no holds barred. Like I just lived this crazy life. Got a DWI when I was 20, like still kept driving drunk, and thankfully I didn't kill anybody. I look back on that and I'm just like, that was such a different world. And like I said, so 24, get married. And I just started hitting like these more rock bottom moments after drinking. I would just, the depth of despair just kept getting deeper. And my sister, I was estranged from my family for quite a while, had reached out to me and asked if I wanted to go to church, which when people would ask me that kind of question, I'd be like, I'd use some words that maybe some truckers would use. And she asked me though, and at that point in my life, I said I would. And unfortunately, when you have holidays, any holiday, and you're in that lifestyle, you kind of whip it up, right? That's kind of what I would call it, a whip it up time. And this was Halloween. So I was supposed to go to church the following day, but I ended up not being able to because I was just way too hungover, right? And thankfully, my sister had the wherewithal and the push to ask again. And I did go, I ended up walking in. And, there's so many things that are still kind of fuzzy at that time, but I just remember like hearing the music. There were songs that were played that spoke directly to what I was walking through. And then what the pastor was talking about I remember just looking at my sister going, like, how does he know I need to hear this? I kept just saying, this is so weird. And like, why are people happy? And why are people like clapping and raising their hands? I was like, this is just so weird. And within a month, I don't know if they did I can't remember if they did like an altar call or if they just said something, from the stage. But I accepted Christ in November of 2003. And immediately, like straight deliverance from alcohol, drugs. I smoked 2 packs a day. It was just gone, all of it.
Wow.
The last thing to go was my mouth. My sister's like, Kristen, you might want to like clean up the language a little bit. And I'm like, really? This is just part of my language. But, and that started to dissipate too. But it was really challenging because, I'd gotten married to my husband who didn't want anything to do with it. It was like I was excited. I'm like, wow, I have a whole new life. My life is gonna be like Cinderella now. That's my that's what my thought process was like, oh, it's gonna be like Cinderella. So I went and bought him a Bible and he was just like, no, not interested. And that was kind of the beginning of, stepping into, what I thought was going to be kind of more of an easy life and immediately having 2 back-to-back miscarriages as well. And I was really confused because I didn't really have anybody in my life except for my sister that I could, go to and ask about like well, I mean, I literally was like, what the hell? I mean, for real. That's basically what I said.
Yeah.
And I don't I always say that I don't think somebody would have prescribed this book of the Bible to somebody who had gone through recent losses and a brand new believer.
Yeah.
But I do remember being in my backyard, laying on a lounge chair and like being in the book of Job. And I read Job and I remember going, if he can go through all that, I can go through anything too. So that was like my first experience of um, going from being tenacious in the world to being like tenacious in the kingdom, and yet still having a lot of pain, but continuing on and continuing to go despite what it looked like in the natural. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It does. I'm sorry for your loss. Your losses.
Yeah.
That's devastating. I can't
Yeah.
imagine.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was definitely a pivot point in, just even having faith because one of the things I was told is that it's pretty unlikely that you could have kids. And I was like, well, too bad, so sad. I think God has a different plan. So I just really stood in faith that I would have children. I had a desire for children. And despite what doctors said, I have a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old now. Pregnancies were horrific. It was pretty another challenging seasons.
Yeah.
I almost lost both of them. They're still here. And I just that's part of my walk is like, okay, well, somebody could tell you something, but what is God's plan? Like, what is his, I like to call it a but God said, and to stand in faith for that, like no matter what it looks like.
Right.
It's really hard sometimes.
I can't even imagine in your case, especially, to be leaning on your faith like that when it's fairly new faith.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we actually recently moved, and that's a whole other faith story. But I was looking back at, my first journal that I started writing in back around that time, and it was like the Psalms where David was crying out, but then he was praising, right? I feel like somebody might have said something about that to me, like cry out, but then praise him on the flip side. And it's challenging at times. It still is, because I'm on a crazy faith walk still.
Okay.
Still,
Still, I mean,
still.
two grown kids though. I mean,
Two. Yep,
what an unbelievable miracle that is to have that
absolutely. Yeah.
blessing.
And they're
My goodness.
amazing. Yeah, they're amazing young men.
Did your
They're
husband?
lions too.
There you go. Did your husband ever come around? Or is he still like, I want to hear about it? Don't tell me. I mean, it's fine. Everybody finds their thing in their own time. I'm just curious,
Yeah.
with what you've been through, and because
Mhm.
I've had a little time with you, and I feel your faith like loud and proud. I mean, you're a lion right now, and have been. So I just
Yeah.
wonder what that's like living with somebody like that if they have a different viewpoint.
Yeah, it's I think the word that's coming from me right now is it's excruciating.
Hmm.
One of the blessings that I ended up going into at that church that I was saved at was they had a group for um they called it basically like women whose husbands didn't attend church or they were unbelievers. And I got to be part of this group. And, there was even women in the group where, if we did like a Bible study or we had a book that we were reading, do you remember back in the day where you went to school and you had to use like paper bags to cover your
To,
textbooks?
yeah, cover the book for
Like
sure.
that's what they did because there was so much angst in the home. If there was
Oh, wow.
anything that, resembled, whether it's the word or Christian, anything. Um, so being part of that group, it wasn't that extreme for me, but I saw that and I thought, oh my gosh, wow, we really need to come together. So this is, we've been married for a long time, and I've been a believer for a long time, and I like to call it for a long time, I would say like I'm in the messy middle. And I used to call my husband an unbeliever, but I flipped the script. I like to flip the script a lot to he's now he's a pre-believer. Like he's just
Yeah,
not there yet. His name is
right,
Adam, and he can't run too far. He's the first man. I mean, come on. So,
right.
but one of the miracles that we're walking through, and I'm probably going to have a book kind of entitled what I've been walking through is middle of a miracle, and rather than it being the messy middle, it's middle of a miracle. So we recently moved, and my husband started going to church like end of December on his own, and he's still coming. And huge miracle,
Wow.
like huge miracle. Like I've been standing in faith, and I mean I've had prayer warriors and I've cried and all the things for decades. And why is it now? I don't know. Why not before? I'd be like, Lord, do, do you see what's happening? Like, but I always say, like, if he could get a hold of me and I was 25, it took that long. Like, if he could get a hold of me and I was so far gone, I mean, I was like Saul to, I always say I was like Saul to Paul, but I didn't kill anybody, thankfully. And if he could get a hold of me, like, he can literally get a hold of anybody.
Yeah,
But we can't force it. We can't force it on them. That's the
yeah.
thing. Like, I've been listening into like a teaching recently, and I guess I'm kind of sidelining here a little bit, but when we were in Florida, there was a farmer's market that we went to, and there was a man with this sign, and it basically said, "Do you know if you're going to hell?" Like, kind of like just fear invoking, trying to get people to come to Christ. And
Yeah.
my husband's like, "Well, that's not really," he was asking me like, "What is that? What is that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's probably, you know, it's really being the, I like to say serve fruit, the fruits of the spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, all the things. Like we just carry that into the places with the people, whether it's your family, your spouse, your friends, the workplace. And it's challenging. I mean, it's hard to be in the world, but not of it.
I wow. I mean,
Especially
just
under the same rooftop. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, that alone is
Whew.
is quite a story. The two questions on that, if you don't mind, some follow up is what was your reaction the first time he said, hey, Kristen, I'm coming to church with
Well, I don't have poker face.
you?
Everything in me was like, there was two things happening at the same time. I was super excited, but I was also a little like not wanting to get too excited to be disappointed as well. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So thrilled. But yet at the same point, I'm like, all right, let's see how this goes.
Almost skeptical. Like, okay,
In a way,
great, but
like
let's see.
let's see what happens here. And you
Yeah.
know, it's beautiful because they had a like a lumberjack days thing, and he's like a man's man. So get out there with your chainsaws and kind of thing. And that's where I think, you know, in church, like I do think that's a really big opportunity for getting men
Yeah.
to get more involved because, you know, there's a lot of women's Bible studies and women's opportunities to serve and to help. But I think it's important to get the lions out there doing some work.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it brings like that camaraderie together and the men get to like roar together. You know what I mean? So I found that like that actually was a really great opportunity for him to meet some people too.
That's great.
Yeah.
The other question on the follow-up that I had from this part of the story was, as you're really into your belief and your
Mhm.
husband is, resisting, he's in his own time, doing his own
Mhm.
thing. How did you sort of figure out how you're going to raise the kids? What was the decision making there and the conversations around that?
Yeah. That was challenging too. I was given like clearance to bring them to church. So I did. And then it got, I mean, talk about warfare happening every Sunday. It's like, rah, we're going out, you know, we're gonna do this thing. And it got to a point where, gosh, I think my boys were about, I think they were 11 and 14, and it just felt like I was just pulling them and I was having to just prod them out of the house. And I'll never forget, one of my mentors was just like, you know what, you're the church in your home, and if you start dragging them, it could kind of go sideways, which was actually what I understand. You know, my husband said he was forced to go to church when he was a kid. So I didn't want to like be that, you know, next generation forcing
Yeah.
kind of thing because I know how it is, right? I've walked the walk of being led in and being saying yes to it, even though I was a quarter century old, right?
I mean, he meets us in his time.
Yeah.
But it's when it's right, So I mean, we all have a different moment where we make that
Yeah.
connection. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I want to applaud you. My wife did the same thing, and so I have given her kudos a million times.
Cool.
I didn't hate church or
Mhm.
God, of course. I was angry from my
Mhm.
upbringing, and so we had the same problem where I was kind of like, yeah, I'm not ready. I'm really angry. But when it came to our kids, that was easier for me because I'm like, I want them to know, I want them to be exposed, and I want them to have their own relationship. So
Yeah.
that was a little easier. But she did what you did and carried the light for it, and
Yeah.
I saw how tough that was. And
Yeah.
so I tell you what, I can appreciate what you went through, having seen it
Yeah.
from this end. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think, you
good
know,
for you.
looking back, when we look back hindsight, it's like, oh, I see what you were doing, Lord. Like I can see it now, but in the middle of it, what I used to tout the messy middle, it's really messy and it's really challenging. That's where it's so important to have, you know, mentors and, you know, like women, you know, for me personally, I needed women who'd kind of gone before me on this walk. I think the group leader at that time from that church I was going to before, gosh, I think she was praying her husband in for 40 years and it finally happened. And she was the leader of the group. So when somebody says you can only lead from a place of actually having the victory, yeah, it's a good concept, but there's times where you're actually leading, but you're still walking the thing out.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
So,
you're leading from being in the struggle.
right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and that makes sense for those folks.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The work that you do
Hmm.
seems to really have a lot of connection to the faith. that you center your life around. How has that impacted? And you can take any of these things that you do and
Yeah.
address this, whichever, maybe the first one. I don't know, however you want to handle it, but all of
Mhm.
these pieces, because I've listened to your podcast, and we've talked about the coaching before. I looked that up, and they all really seem to. I don't know if I want to say they have a faith component to them necessarily, but the person teaching them certainly is not shy about
Yeah.
her belief. So I wonder, what that transition was like, kind of how your
Mhm.
faith and that sort of thing led to these
Yeah.
other.
It's everything. I think especially as a, ministry owner, business owner, anybody like in this realm of kingdom-minded Christian, uh, has walked through the fire kind of girl here. Um, it's foundational for me. Like you have to have the gift of faith to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, really, right? I mean, I think of that all the time, and I know like part of my DNA is just very tenacious. Like I won't give up. And so these things that he's had me to step into the coaching officially, like I started doing that like 9 years ago, but I feel like I've been doing it my whole life, whether it was coaching myself or coaching other people. Um, Now coaching is really about, sometimes people don't really understand what coaching is, but coaching is kind of like this line of demarcation where therapy counseling is more kind of helping with the past. Coaching is like, okay, I'm at the line and I want to run and I need somebody to come alongside me. I need to get to that place where maybe I'm being called. I like to say it like I'm the one coming along as that midwife who's not going to let you self-abort what God has given you to birth. Because he gives us visions, he gives us dreams, and like I said, it takes a lot of grit and faith to keep going. So that's really like, if I were to make an umbrella, that would be kind of the umbrella overarching of everything that he's called me to do. It would be keep, like two words, keep going. So whether it's the coaching, it's like keep going. Whether it's the podcast, keep going. Whether it's the book that he just had me to release, which is like me, even the podcast, like me, like book, me, like, are you sure you got the right one? Everything involves this like deep cry within me that I have to speak over myself of keep going, and then this deep cry to see others keep going. Because I'm even feeling like this week, I just did a message this morning. Um, like I just feel like a lot of people are on this like path of just wanting to give up.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I
And
can see that.
I'm like, no, that's not gonna, I mean, circumstances in the world, you're hearing like narratives that like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Why bother? Why even bother? Or maybe somebody's like, what are you thinking? Like, what are you even thinking trying to create this in this time? Or what do you even just in any time? Just like, that sounds crazy. And I love Noah in the Bible. Like he's like he's the man. So I've had these I don't know, whenever I'm reading the Bible, it's almost like a movie's happening in my head. I don't know if anybody else has that happening,
That's great.
but it's like I imagine Noah like sitting down with his wife, for breakfast, with his coffee cup, and he's got a lion coffee cup like yours.
There you
And his
go.
wife is like, "What are you doing? Like what are you actually thinking? Like, do we need to put you in a padded room? Like, there's no rain. It's been 20 years. You're building this thing that I didn't get the vision. Like, what are you doing?" So I feel like at times I'm kind of like I call it a Noah builder. And there's many out there who are, and yet they're getting this message of like, but what if? What's your plan B? And it's like, no, 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 no. We need to like Noah, he's like, but God said, period.
Yeah.
End of story, wife.
I don't know if you would have ended it that way
I
a
know,
couple of
but
things,
that's what I imagine
might not be a
in
story.
my. I know. It's my comedic version of what I imagine their
Right,
conversation to be like.
right. When you say that you're, a Noah,
Mhm.
in what way? I mean, just in terms of thought, or I mean, in terms of action, or does that have to do with some
Mhm.
of these programs that you're doing?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the perseverance,
Hmm.
the visions that he gives me for ways to reach people to help them keep going forward. But yet there's this crock pot timeline. It's not an Instapot, right? So 120 years for the ark to be built, right? Noah and Sarah waited. All these people in the Bible waited, and I feel like I have a chapter in my book called Weight Training. There's things I've been waiting on. I've been in business for a long time and haven't seen the full fulfillment of the promise and the vision of these things that I put out there. And yet I know that it's not something that I'm to give up on because there's generational implications to me continuing to say yes.
Yeah.
Going back to like the lions, like I help women like unlock their voices like inadvertently, just even sometimes having them on the podcast. Like they've never shared their story before. They've maybe never been on a podcast before. And, I feel like I've heard over and over, like you create this safe place for me to share who I am, what God's called me to, and then voices just get unlocked inadvertently. Like I call it ninja coaching. They don't know they're getting coached.
Ninja coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So the
great.
lionesses get to be um not because I've actually walked through, years of my voice being silenced, like
Hmm.
years.
Okay. Prior to, discovering your faith, or since?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because growing up, I talked a lot in school and I was basically told to shut up. I got in trouble a lot for talking. And the very thing that I'm called to do, to use my voice, whether it's in podcasting or coaching, I need my voice to do these things,
Yeah.
was the thing that tried to silence me. And there was time, it was like the enemy was almost putting like a chokehold on my voice. And, you guys remember Noah, or not Noah, but Moses, when he was asked to, go back to Exodus, he was asked to be the deliverer and to speak. And he's like, God, like, I can't do that. I'm not eloquent of speech. And that's what comes for me all the time. Even before starting the podcast, I'm like, God, like, hey, are you sure about this? Like, I'm kind of like Noah, or not, no, I'm kind of like Moses with, my voice. And he's like, well, it's for the one. And I'm like, okay, I can do it for the one. Like, I'm not out, for the big, huge platform. And then he also said, it's not a podcast, it's a seed cast. And I was like, you had me at hello, you had me at Seedcast. And it just was this, and maybe this will speak to somebody today, kind of like Indiana Jones, like to get over the chasm, he had to actually take that step. So for me to say yes to start a podcast and have no idea what I was doing,
Yeah.
he showed me what to do. He showed me what it was to be. He showed me how it was to show up. And it goes back to just being completely authentic and to screw up and not edit it and to just put it out there. And in time, over time, it's gotten easier with using my voice. And, I had some pretty big moments before I left corporate using my voice too. And that was a huge unlocking for me because I almost felt like Esther. Are you sure again, Lord?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. My
Hmm.
gosh. I mean, so you've almost been moving through this almost begrudgingly. Like, are you sure?
At
You
times, yeah, I
positive?
asked the question, I've learned over time that he actually loves that about me. Like he calls me a woman of wonder. So I ask why a lot. Like, why? Like, why me? Why? in some in good ways and not like why me? Oh, why me? Like but why? Or, just wanting to know the deeper meaning behind things. But yeah, like truly at times, like, are you sure, God? And then knowing, like, over time, I've just learned I have to know my no. And he was showing me that back in 2020, like, no, N-O is in the middle of K-N-O-W. So you have to know your no. So if I say no to something that he's calling me to, again, it goes back to there's generational implications that are tied to it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know about you, but I've taken some pretty big leaps of faith that ancestors lineage behind me, there's definitely been people that have taken big steps of faith. Um, but I feel like I literally live in the wildlife. Like I'm living in this I lived a wild life in the world before, and now it's like just being completely wild for him, and doing things that don't make sense.
Yeah. Wow. The you mentioned, some of the spiritual warfare that you've been hit with. And
Mhm.
what has that been like? What sort of forms has that taken? And what do you feel like it was trying to stop you from doing?
Well, I can use a recent example. One of the first words the Lord gave me for this year is speak. That was a pretty big one back in 2023 before the podcast started. And he said, it's going to be the year of the stretch with your voice. And this is actually another year of the stretch with my voice. And he said, if it's in alignment, just say yes. So that's part of why I'm even being interviewed on here right now. Because I've been interviewing a lot of people. I feel like a stagehand, like I'm the one that's really wanting to get people out on in front of the mic for them, and he's like, okay, you're coming out too. Like, okay, okay, we'll do this. I was asked to speak at an event about a month ago, yeah, back in February. And I honestly I've learned to be great on, great doing podcast interviews because it feels natural now because I just love connecting and talking to people. But when it came to like standing in front of a group in person, like that's a whole other thing. I can't wear my sweatpants on the bottom. I can't, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just it's a different thing. And for me, I think there was just some trauma from the past in like, anyways. So every part of me, like my fingers, my toes, my head was saying no. But what came out of my mouth was yes, because it was in alignment. And I was reminded of that. If it's in alignment, say yes. So the day before I was to speak, I was literally hit with what felt like having contractions. And I talk about being a spiritual midwife.
Hmm.
I like it was waves of pain that I have not experienced before. And the gal that had invited me was just like, well, do you feel like we should, delay this, do it another time? And I said, absolutely not. I'm showing up there no matter what. If I don't sleep, we're doing this thing. And even on the way there, like a semi almost ran me off the road. And I'm like, I mean,
What?
I mean, the the amount of pushback that happens with me at times, if you've seen the movie Wonder Woman, have you seen Wonder
Oh,
Woman
yeah.
from like 2017, I think it was?
Yeah, for sure.
Where like they're all like, don't come out of the trenches. And she's like, I'm going in no matter what. That scene right there is kind of like, it's funny. It's kind of what keeps me going. I'm like, I'm going no matter what. There's gonna be landmines, there's gonna be arrows coming my way, but try me. If this is how I'm gonna get taken out, all right.
Right.
And what was so wild, what I spoke about was words of life. And I was planning to do a lot of prepping the day before. I didn't have the like brain space. I was in so much pain, so I couldn't really do anything. So I did a lot of just speaking. I just literally opened my mouth, and one of the gals came up to me after and said, "Your words were like sending us out like soldiers when we leave this place."
Wow.
Really?
You did
Okay.
something right.
I don't know what I said, but you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, yeah, we're going to experience pushback. Um, but when we say yes to something, you got to follow through. Unless there's something, unless there's something that really is really keeping you from, I've had times where my car like was just having random problems. And I mean, it's been a wild life. It's really been a wild life. And, lions, they live in the wildlife.
Right.
And to be a lion, you're going to have to come out of the cage where it's complacent and safe.
Yeah, great analogy. I love that. I'm not at all surprised to hear you reference Wonder Woman, of all things.
I
Not even
love
a
her.
little.
I love her.
Even
She
a
is
little
my
bit.
favorite. Like, I've said to people, I'm like, I'm like Wonder Woman. I'm just not fully developed yet. Like, I'll get there. She's got attributes that I'm not there quite yet, but I just love that movie so much. So if you haven't seen the movie, ladies and men, I think it'll help like just it fires me up.
Well, your message has not fallen on deaf ears. We have a very large female leaders or listenership on this show. So,
Okay.
yeah, roughly 70% of our listeners are women,
Well,
which
go
is
watch
awesome.
it and let Rory know like what happens after you watch that movie. You've never seen it before. And come from it in a perspective of, I often will assign movies to clients and come from it like a perspective of like what does God want to show me through
Mhm.
this movie?
Yeah.
Not just a movie, but like what does he want to show me? How do I like resemble this person or what does he want me to grow into through this movie?
Yeah.
What is he speaking to you? Like, are there little clips in the movie that are just like, I literally will take videos of movies, of clips that are very poignant to me as reminders.
Well, all right. I
Yeah.
mean, hey, I can see
Uh,
that. It's whatever you take out of it. So
yeah.
the other thing is that God speaks to us in the way that He meets us where we are in a lot of ways. So if that's a way that you're going to hear it, then very often that's how He's going to speak to you,
Yeah.
is through that. So I've
Yeah.
been spoken to through movies plenty of times. I know exactly
Yeah.
what you're talking
So
about.
what would be like your movie that really is kind of like my Wonder Woman movie?
The Rocky movies
Oh,
were it for me. No male role model, so on and so forth. Taught me about resilience. Taught me that it was actually a thing to be an underdog, and
yeah.
that you didn't have to win if you made it 15 rounds. There was a lot of pride in that, type of
Yeah.
thing. I
Yeah.
was basically raised by Sylvester Stallone and Rocky.
Isn't that amazing?
It's kind of ridiculous, but it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I
he
love
spoke to
that.
me through all of that. I can't even tell you how many times,
Yeah.
through a line here or an emotion there or a look or whatever it
Mhm.
was. And I've heard it, and
Yeah.
it's made a difference over all these years. So,
Yeah.
everybody has their thing. So, I mean, my superhero is Captain America, if we're going to get real, about
Superman.
it. So, which is kind of
Not,
like the
not
male version of
Superman.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Not Superman. Not Superman.
No, goodness, no. Goodness, no. I mean, totally unbeatable and invincible and
Yeah.
unbreakable. And,
Yeah.
that's not me.
Okay.
I'm the
Yeah.
flawed hero off on the side, right?
I love it.
Who's looking for redemption.
Yeah. I mean, even what you said about like the underdog, I just love the underdogs.
Yeah.
I really do. Like I'm such an underdog. Like a lot of women that I get to meet, men that I get to meet, and it's just like there's such a cap that can be put on many of us that you get. And I think of that quote where it's like I'm gonna totally misquote it, but like at the end of your life, there's more lost opportunities in the cemetery than anywhere or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I have an idea what
Where
you're
it's
saying.
like
Right.
he gives us these ideas and these like I could have said no to doing a podcast. I could have,
Hmm.
you know, he would have given it to somebody else. But the breakthroughs, I think it's the permission. That's what I've been seeing a lot lately in being an underdog. Maybe for you too, like we give permission to other underdogs to like step
Yeah.
up to the plate. Like, okay, like, I'm a completely flawed lioness, right? My hair's matted at times. My roar can be like, you know? But yet, I know that it gives other lionesses and even lions permission because they're like, oh my goodness, like she can do that. I think I can too.
Right?
I'm
Exactly.
like, okay, sign me up. I'm good with that, you know?
Exactly. Embracing the underdog also sort of almost completely eliminates the imposter syndrome, because you're like, why not me?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the whole idea of the underdog is, I can too.
yeah,
Watch,
yeah,
just get out of my way. I'm going. And
yeah,
I'm jumping about this trench right now and I'm going. I don't care what you say. Right.
yeah, yeah,
And when you can feel that way, then you don't worry about what the rest of the world's telling you, because the rest of the
exactly.
world had their shot.
Right, right.
You know,
And I mean, doesn't it make it, at least for me, it's like there's such a reliance on the Lord, like having to be in it with me
Mhm.
because it's so outside of my wheelhouse. Even every coaching call beforehand, it's like I need you to be here with me.
Yeah,
Everything I do, I'm like, this is beyond me.
right.
I need you to speak through me, and that's where when we invite that in, I'm like, wow, what just happened?
It's great. Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. I appreciate you being so open and honest and just, going wherever this conversation took you today.
Yeah.
Because when people hear stuff like this from someone like you who's being so genuine, talking about their life,
Mhm.
it's not a sales pitch. It's nothing except this is me. And you're encouraging other people to say, you know what? I'm okay too. And this is me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go tell the world.
Yeah.
It's really huge and it has huge, long reaching impacts for people. So, I mean, I applaud the heck out of you for just
Oh,
doing things the way you do them on a regular basis. I'm a fan.
well, thanks. Yeah,
Absolutely.
wherever I go, there he is. So
Right on. Absolutely.
he's like, all right, girl, we're doing this today. Okay.
All right. Before we wrap things up, just in terms of time, because we could probably keep talking about this and superheroes and everything else, right,
Yeah.
for another hour. But
Yeah.
tell everybody how they can reach Kristin Kurtz, how they can find out about all your programs, your book, your podcast, the whole bit.
Yeah. We could just go to newwingscoaching.net, specifically .net. So spelled out NEWWINGS, coaching, COACHING.net. And then you can find me, on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those places.
Wonderful.
Substack, I've been doing a little bit more over there. But yeah, I would say the website would be the best place to check things out.
Awesome. Last question, and I didn't prep you for this. So, folks, give her a little bit of grace, all right, if she
Okay.
needs a minute. All right, go grab your Twix
Okay.
if you need a
I'll
second.
take a sip of my tea.
That's right. Get ready. Um, there are a whole bunch of folks out there who listen to this program who want to be lions. They
Mhm.
want to be lions. They want to be a lioness, a lion. They want to get the word out, and they just can't quite get there. They
Mhm.
listen to folks who come on here. They're looking for a way to do it. For the person who's out there listening, who wants to speak, who wants to stop being silent, but is just still hesitant, what's one thing you can tell them? A step to take, a thought to think, maybe a word of encouragement, anything to get them to move a little bit forward tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, like getting the word. Um, Moses is a really great example of one who was hesitant, but he did give his yes eventually. God actually got mad at him, but he assigned him a helper. He assigned him Aaron to be like a mouthpiece for him in the interim while he was learning. So knowing what could happen through, like, there's a why behind your whining. Like Moses, he was kind of whining a little bit, right? And I'm
A
not
lot,
saying anybody
yeah.
here is whining, and I do sometimes too. Like, are we whining or are we whining? There is again, going back to our yes has generational implications. It's not about you. Using your voice. I have a family member that thinks she's social phobic, and I said to her, when you go to the grocery store, be more interested than interesting. So if you haven't used your voice for a while, go to the grocery store and go up to the cashier and just say, "How are you today?" Let them let them share with you. Don't worry about you having to come up with your, dissertation of who you are and what you do, just listen, be an ear to somebody and ask a question. Like, be really curious, use questions. That's, as a coach, I ask questions and it literally will dig the gold out of somebody else and you will bless somebody. So practice that first, just asking, so how are you? What are you doing today? And just let them talk. Don't worry about what you need to say in response. I know it sounds very simple, but it's kind of like basic training, right? It's basic training. And if he's calling you to do something that is beyond the grocery store, maybe like what he called me, but this has been like steps over time for me. Like doing a podcast wasn't like I got saved and then he's like, okay, podcast now. Like I had to kind of grow, right? I had to do some growing and clipping of, thorns and all the things along the way. So keep it simple and again, stay tethered to what he's calling you to do and just say yes. Like there's so much in your yes. Esther's another great one to go back to and read her story of through her using her voice, Moses using his voice, like nation delivered.
Nice. Very nice.
So I'll leave it.
I
I'll leave
love
that
that.
there.
Yeah, if you're not ready to speak, start by listening. That's an
Mhm.
unbelievable perspective. I love that. All right.
Two, two of these.
Right. All right, folks. That was amazing. Kristen, you're amazing. I'm so glad you came on this show to share this part of your life with everybody. Folks, the founder of New Wings Coaching, Kristin Kurtz, thank you for being on today, for sharing what you did, and just for lifting up, hearts and minds for everybody who's listening. It really meant a lot. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, it is time. It is time now more than ever to wake up the lions. And we need more people, more lionesses, more lions who are out there willing to speak, who are trying to speak. And you know what? Great advice today. Start by listening. Start by listening and let somebody else start the narrative, and you'll get there. You will get there. But more than that, folks, it's time for you to take your rightful place with your brothers and your sisters and let them hear you roar. The world's ready. You are ready. You just have to believe it. Until next time.